Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital, the sports tech venture capital company. On this show, I interview top sports entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives who are shaping and many times changing the sports industry. And today, we have a very special show because we don't always get to interview and have on our show the entrepreneurs of companies that we at 76 Capital have invested in. And today we're going to be talking sports science, data, and analytics with Vala Dormiani. We have Bo Nam, as well as Samir Pujari, the co-founders of our newest 76 portfolio company, Ludis Analytics. Vala, Bo, Samir, welcome to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. Let's get started and talk about Ludis Analytics. What is Ludis Analytics, and who wants to take that? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that one. Yeah, so Ludis is basically a data science platform to allow organizations to basically make use of the data that they're already collecting, they're already aggregating. So most organizations already have a variety of different data sets and are paying money to collect a variety of different data sets. But the way they use it is relatively unsophisticated. And so we want to be the platform that allows them to use data science in a much more sophisticated way, actually apply machine learning algorithms and actually use neural networks, predictive models, do things with that data that is beyond just Excel pivot tables.
Well, Vala, that's amazing, and I'm going to try to break that down during this show to hear about all the things you're doing, and maybe Samir or Bo, if you want to jump in here and share a little bit of the background of how the three of you got together, why you're building this company. Was there something that made you want to go do this?
Yeah, for sure. So I think all of us have been in the analytics world for a long time. I guess we can get into that a little bit later, but Vala and I both worked at Cloudera, which is a big data company. And while we were there, both of us knew that we wanted to get into startups. Vala had been very, very active in the sports space. So he was he coached a rugby team at Stanford. Bo and him had worked in the past together. And so Bo also has founded a company around analyzing data. We ended up coming together and realizing that we can apply all of these things that we've been seeing in Silicon Valley, all of these like big data movements that have been happening, and start applying them into niche spaces. So initially we started off with sports as a place to start. And we're able to see that everybody has heard of Moneyball, but very, very few people are actually applying anything that they have heard from that towards the sports. Most of the teams, they'll hire a data analyst or two, and then they say that guy will get it, that he'll figure out how to make all of the stuff happen. Just like in Moneyball, right? The guy he starts playing around in Excel, and then next thing you know, they're winning championships. But that's not how it works. You need a whole team backing up your data side also, and not just the players on the field.
Just to add in here, from the sports market side, I would say if you grab any random person off the street and ask them, what do you think is the state of sports analytics today? They'll probably think back to, what Samir just mentioned, Moneyball was like 20 years ago. So they probably think they have some, Minority Report style command center with like all these data feeds coming in from these devices and all this advanced tools. But in reality, it's just not like that. A lot of analysis happens manually. A lot of it happens in Excel files. There are some great data science tools out there, but what we're really trying to struggle to figure out is why the vast majority of teams in the pro sports leagues aren't really at that point where they have this amazing command center. And that's sort of what we're trying to solve. So we went back and looked at all the pain points in why that hasn't happened. On the flip side, if you look out of Silicon Valley, you see all these amazing AI companies, analytics companies, machine learning companies come out for the past 15, 20 years. And then you kind of got to figure out what's the disconnect. There's all these advanced tools out there there's all these great teams with a lot of budget and a lot of ability and a lot of data. What's not mixing? And that's what we would try to solve. And what we figured out was a lot of it comes down to process. The way that data science is done is a very complicated process where, like Samir saying, you can't just hire 1 or 2 data scientists, go buy a bunch of data and lock them in a room and say, hey, go figure out all those cool, crazy details. Tell me how to win games. It just doesn't work like that. You need to have data engineers. You have to have a process to clean and structure that data. Then you have to analyze that data. Then you have to deliver that data. And most importantly, those insights have to be useful at the end of the day. So that's what we really try to do is we provide this platform that institutes a very strong process, a very clean way. It's just 3 pieces. It's data management, data analysis and manipulation, and then visualization. And we're trying to do it in a way where it's really simple and easy. So teams that have all this data already, they can come to us and we can institute this process. And without hiring any additional software engineers, we're able to produce some of those actionable insights.
Well, I think that's you really broke it down beautifully there, Bo. And Vala, I think maybe take it from step 1, the data and the information. From a professional, let's talk about a professional sports team. Where does this data come from? Like you talked about, you mentioned Samir mentioned different sensors and other places. Like, where are they getting this data? And then today, like, where does it go? I mean, does it just go to some quote unquote some guy's computer and then they have to figure it out? I mean, like, how's it all working today?
Sure. Yeah, so there's basically these organizations that are data aggregators. Think Sports Radar, Second Spectrum, Opta. And each sport typically has one major data aggregator that is the sort of data producer for that sport. So anything that happens in game gets captured by this data producer. So in a rugby context, tackles, positions on the field, points, all that sort of stuff. In a basketball context, similarly, 3-point shooting percentages, all rebounds, all that sort of. All those pieces of information. So all that in-game data is aggregated by these data aggregators. But then these players are also wearing IoT devices. They're wearing Catapult devices, Connexon. They're wearing just their own wearables. So there's just an infinite amount of data being produced. But where that lives is typically in silos. It lives in the silo of the data producer. So an organization has access to each of those silos, but they're not able to as easily cross-pollinate those data sets to come up with interesting insights. And so that's where we come in to basically be able to try to aggregate these data sets and allow the analysis to be done not only on one analysis in independence, but in combination. And that's essentially the key pieces of the puzzle. So going back to your question, where does that live? It essentially lives in like a CSV file that's been pulled down from a particular silo. Often that's what we see. And so some interesting analysis can be done on that CSV file or Excel spreadsheet, but it's relatively limited because it's only one data set rather than a combination of multiple data sets.
And so, Samir, when this, in your experience now in doing this for professional teams, has there been a situation where they're like, oh my God, has there been like an aha moment where you were able to present this information to one of the teams and they're like, this is amazing. I didn't even know I had this. I didn't even know this was happening out there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people get surprised about the most is how much computers can do for you. A lot of people get stuck in their ways of, I need to download this CSV from Sports Radar, and then I use that in a certain way, and then I'll run it on my computer and it will do something, and then they send a PDF to their boss, right? To the coach on the team, and then he makes a decision based on that. They don't realize that a lot of the data management side that they do behind the scenes is once you know what you need to do, it's very, very easy to make happen behind the scenes. And so a lot of times what we've seen is that people don't realize how easily that can be done. And so once we've worked with our teams, we start making it all go behind the scenes. We have it automated run every single day or multiple times a day. We're able to clean the data, turn it into the correct format. And then without even having to have them in the picture anymore, they're now able to have this automated email that gets sent to their boss. Or if that data pipeline fails in the background, then they get an email that, hey, I need to go do something about this and I can fix it before it needs to happen before. Whereas before, they'd be staying up till 4 a.m. after the game is done, just making sure that any of the data pipelines that they had been working on were running, that they didn't fail. And it's something that it just keeps people up at night because they have to be there. Because if it fails and it doesn't happen, then tomorrow morning when everybody comes in to do the next day's training or debrief after the game, they're stuck with yesterday's data or with no data. And so that's the big aha moment that we start seeing, is where people suddenly realize that I don't have to be up at night, even though that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. That's where people start getting excited about being able to automate a lot of the data management pipelines behind the scenes.
I think, Bo, one of the things that has been is fascinating is that most people look at this and say Moneyball. So that's all about the players and everything on the field. At Ludis, it's more than just the data that is being used by players and coaches and trainers. You're able to take more of the even the business side of things and share that and show opportunities to your clients to sort of take the business side to the next level as well, right?
That's right. So if you think about what we really do at the end of the day, it's kind of helping combining really complex, large data sets and then running analytics across all of them. So on-field analytics, that makes a lot of sense with the Moneyball example, but off-field analytics, that's where I think things like fan engagement, stadium operations, and a lot of other factors like e-commerce come into play. And when you think about fan engagement, this is another area where there's a lot of exciting things happening. One thing I think a lot of sports industry folks are excited about is the promise of Web3, whether it's from sports memorabilia, turning NFTs into tickets, all these kind of aspects. But the biggest question when you enter a new kind of technology or a new product or something that is really kind of changing the trends is you got to really understand how that market is working. And I think that's an area where we're trying to help, is provide some transparency and some trusted data sources for a new technology that's developing. A lot of teams are using it in different ways. And I think initially what we're really finding is other teams are very interested in seeing how that's developing, how that's impacting their business, and seeing if it's like a right decision for them. And this is applicable not just for Web3, but any of those IoT devices, whether it's these new kind of cameras that are being outfitted in stadiums, anything related to a sports organization's business. If you have data pipes coming in and you need to analyze it, we're happy to help understand and really find actionable insights from those data feeds.
Well, Vala, on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show, we get a lot of executives from teams, leagues that fortunately have many times have been guests, but also are avid listeners and viewers of our show. So what would you say to them right now? About what you can do for and with them. I think that's the one thing that I've learned, from spending time with you guys and my partner Chad and Ty and the rest of our team has gotten to know you guys, is the sense that it's really not just you provide them with some stuff and here's some great stuff. It's this back and forth. It's this partnership that you're able to really build with your clients.
Yeah, I think the key thing for us is the modern executive in any industry, but especially in sports, needs to be a data-driven executive, needs to be able to be data literate, understand the data, understand data science, understand machine learning. I think where we see the gap being is that there's a significant long tail of organizations that don't necessarily use data science and machine learning in sophisticated ways. And so what we want to be is the on-ramp onto that data science highway, for lack of a better way to describe it, so that organizations can actually use it in sophisticated and interesting ways. And so to be able to do that, it's not only just here's a product, here's a platform, figure out yourself. That's in fact the fundamental difference that we have with other platforms of this ilk, is we see the platform itself as a bookshelf, but you need to pre-populate that bookshelf with books. And so for us, the content that we can provide out of the box is the books on the bookshelf, so that organizations can actually get up to speed and not just have to start from zero. And that also includes not only providing the content, but the context behind the content for these organizations. And so that's why we work really closely with the GMs and coaches, so that they not only get a bunch of insights, but they understand what they can actually do with those insights.
So one of the things I wanted to also touch on is we talked about the building of the business, but you have a really great group of investors, which we're really proud to be one of. To talk about some of the investors that you have in the business so far, and maybe some of the things that they've been able to do to help you more than just capital.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're very fortunate to have some great investors. I think Hustle Fund is one, Raptor Group is another that obviously you guys are very familiar with. We've got some amazing investors in our cap table, and folks that not only are great because they have supported us financially, but have also connected us with a lot of other folks. I think even the 76 Capital connection indirectly came through Raptor. And so we're incredibly fortunate that not only have they provided us with financial support, but they've also facilitated a lot of connections to fellow investors, not only other institutions, but also angel investors. We've got a number of professional athletes who have invested and are advisors to our business, particularly on the rugby side and Australasian side of the business. And so we've been incredibly fortunate that everyone's basically opened up their Rolodexes to us rather than just saying, here's the money, good luck. And we're incredibly fortunate that that's the types of folks that have invested in us.
One thing to add on the investor side is one of the most exciting parts is when you have customers turn into investors. And I think that's some of the people that Val is talking about, where we have athletes and executives or teams that have used our product, kind of see where the future is headed. And I think that's a big testament to the approach and the idea that we can use this group of folks, that investors, to run product ideas by thinking about how it's going to affect their industry, their careers, and other people in their ecosystem. And I think that's really an exciting aspect to have.
We absolutely agree with that, and I'll tell you, one of my favorite things that I get to do on our 76 Capital Leadership Show is really to learn a little bit more about all of our guests. I mean, this is probably my favorite part of the show. Always love to hear about what everyone's working on, but you guys have such an interesting story. There's so many, each one of you has your own, have your own, unique story, but also how you've all come together in this, and maybe Vala, I got to start with you. I mean, tell us your story. I don't even want to, set it up. Tell us. I'd love to hear your story.
Sure. Yeah. So originally from New Zealand, grew up in Australia, which is actually where Anthony, our fourth co-founder, is also based. Him and I went to high school together. I came out to the U.S. for college at Stanford. Was fortunate enough to come here actually as a 14-year-old. So I was a bit of a youngin' when I started university. And it was an incredible experience. Obviously, Stanford, the heart of Silicon Valley, the heart of entrepreneurship. It was a great experience to get exposed to that type of ecosystem. But I was also a big fan of sports and had played rugby at a reasonably high level back in Australia, and then continued to play here in the U.S. and immediately jumped in and played college rugby here in the U.S. as well, which was a little bit unusual as a 14-year-old going up against 21, 22, 23-year-olds at times. But had a great experience there and had a lot of fun. And but then in my career, it was primarily in the big data space. And so I spent some time as an investor on the innovation endeavors, spent some time at a company called Slice, which was e-commerce analytics, which was bought out by Rakuten. I spent a lot of my career at Cloudera, obviously with Samir, and experience both an acquisition and a company going public, so different types of exits. Sat on both sides of the table, on the investor side and on the operator side. And the ambition was always to, frankly, start a company. And what better company to start than applying my knowledge and background in data science and machine learning and data management with the passion for sports. And frankly, the only reason that it took me so long to actually start it was it took me so long to get a green card. Once I got the green card, that was the trigger to actually be able to start the company. But that's my background in a nutshell.
Well, it's a tremendous story. And why don't Samir, why don't you give your background?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in startups for a while. My first job out of college was at a big company, but while I was interviewing for that big company, I ended up getting poached by a friend of a friend who was starting a startup out in Silicon Valley. So quickly I moved from Wisconsin, where that first job was, out to California. It was in the dead of winter, complete drastic change from negative 17 degrees Fahrenheit to suddenly like a nice 50, 60 Fahrenheit. So I joined as the first software engineer over there. I originally had been hired as a data scientist, but we were a small startup and there was not nearly enough data to do any science on. So we ended up, I ended up working very, very closely with the CTO over there. About a year into being at that company, we got acquired by Cloudera. So I ended up spending the next 3.5 years at Cloudera, went through the IPO along with Vala. We ended up working on all kinds of new cool projects, and I got to start things up from the ground up over there again. Then I knew I wanted to go. I always knew I wanted to get into startups, but I knew that there was a little bit that I need to round out on my skill set. So I ended up, when I left Cloudera, I went to Uber. And so I worked at this very, very high scale, very, very like consumer driven app company. And I got to see stuff at levels at like transaction volumes and API calls that you never see anywhere else. And so I'm working with things that are happening a billion times a second, right? And so being able to translate that over into other kinds of applications that anybody would need. Now, I knew that I wanted to go start a startup again, and Vala and Bo had been talking about this before, but I also had been talking about startups with Vala, having come through that whole startup acquisition. And so we ended up coming together and forming a company around this whole data science idea. I brought the more of the technical data science background side, and then we were able to round out each other's different pieces that we were all better at.
Well, Bo, let's hear your background, because it's really interesting. I mean, to me, I won't spoil it. Bo, go ahead.
Sounds good. Thanks. So I started off my career on Wall Street. I was an equity analyst at JP Morgan and a bunch of other investment banks covering the US internet sector for about 8 years. That's when I first experienced all these problems working with large multiple data sets. As I was researching all the companies and working on the IPOs, it was just really difficult wrangling everything into one place and using all the tools out there. Then I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been a VC here for about 5-6 years, investing directly into the machine learning, the enterprise SaaS, the data visualization companies and startups, and working with them. That's also where I realized that despite how advanced those technologies are, adoption and analytic sophistication at many organizations and companies that should be much further, the sophistication was quite low. And that's where I really got interested in this problem. And that's when I first met Vala back in 2014. I think we were both VCs at the time looking at these companies, and we really started talking about how we could solve this problem. As Vala mentioned, in 2019, I also got my green card too, which also helped us start the company. But right before then, I also had a stint as a product manager at a fintech startup. And we were really trying to compete against Bloomberg and looking at unique data sets. And that's really the final place where I really started banging my head against the same problem. Too many large data sets to manage. Clients had too many large data sets to manage. Everybody has this dream of running analytics and insights across multiple large data sets and getting super actionable things. But we kept coming down to the problem of why can't large organizations and enterprises who have the budget and the data actually fulfill those goals? And so that's what we're here to solve.
Well, what I was going to say, Bo, is, I mean, I think, your background in the VC world and kind of doing the Wall Street thing. I mean, I think a lot of people over the last few years, not that I know a lot of people thought I was a little crazy saying that the sports industry was an asset class. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can now start to say that this is truly an asset class right now. It needs analytics in a major way. And I think that there's just too much money, there's too much spend, there's too much interest, there's the passion that people have for sports and want more and more and more of their teams and of their favorite players, and the teams themselves want to win championships and do better every single day on the field, off the field, building a big operation. To do all of this, you need all of the things that what you and your team here at Ludis are doing to build it all out. I mean, you need all of this. You have to have these tools. So I think that it's what excites me about why we're investors in your company. But at the same time, I think for you guys, I'd love to hear more about what your thoughts are as to how big the overall sports business industry can and will be in the future.
Bo, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So yes, absolutely agree. Sports is at an incredibly interesting point in time right now. So if you look at the trends in the industry, the usage of analytics, while it's been around for a long time, the amount of data that's become available to teams has exploded in the last 5 to 10 years. Not just these large data aggregators, which are fantastic companies, by the way, that we love to be complementary with. We love to work with them, like the Sport Radars, the Optas, the Second Spectrums and such. But the IoT side has just become phenomenal. Not just like all the GPS tracking devices, but just the science on the sports science of pulling down the data, whether it's sleep related, cortisol related, blood related. There's just so much data, just every day that's becoming available. And frankly, so little of it is being used. A lot of teams buy a tremendous amount of data and so little is being used. And there's just more and more new stuff coming in like a fire hose. And I think that is what makes timing so interesting today is the tools for the advanced machine learning things are there. The data is there. We just got to figure out that middle connectivity part. So that from a timing perspective, we think the industry is absolutely ready. In terms of the usage of the data, I think that's another area where we're very excited. So one part of the site that we offer is a completely no code, full consumption side, because we think coaches and GMs, they oftentimes ask just for the answer, but a lot of times data science is not a prescriptive answer. It's not a one-word thing of, here's the one thing you got to go do, and then all your dreams are going to come true. A lot of it's situational, a lot of it's interactive, and that's where we're really focused on providing really clean, touch and drop, drag and, what you see is what you get kind of types of consumption of analysis is really important too. If you get a 50-page PDF report and the answer is on page 49, frankly, I don't think that PDF is going to get opened very much. If you get a link that you can open on your phone and just play with a couple of sliders and see the couple of situational things that you need to do right before practice or right before a game, we think that's going to be used a lot more. And I think as you see also in the sports industry, you're seeing more devices on the sidelines, you're seeing tablets. And I think that's really where we want to get into is really bringing the sports world to that place where people already think you have that minority report kind of style. We want to deliver that. And that's going to be our ultimate goal, not just for sports, but for the whole sports organization. On field, off field, everything internally. If you have data feeds coming in, we can centralize that for you and have management or the owners be able to kind of have a bird's eye view across everything in one place.
But we still have the coaches that say, wait a second. They're like, come on, Samir. Yeah, you did this stuff for Uber and all these millions and billions of transactions in a minute. I could just look at that guy and I can tell you that what he needs to go do or how to do this, because my eyes can see it all. How do you deal with people like that, and how do you kind of walk them into the world of analytics?
I think it's exactly along the way that Bo was saying, right? They need to be they can definitely make a decision, and they have been doing it for 30 years. We can't argue with that, right? But at the end of the day, you're competing with other people who are using data. And if you are the person who's buying data and just throwing it out the window and not even using it, you're wasting your money. If you're not buying the data, then you're competitively disadvantaged, right? So giving them the option to be able to look at what is going on the field, and then now they are the experts of whatever they're doing, right? They know that this is the way to do it, but maybe there's a better way to do it, right? Maybe there is a way that you can still continue doing this, whatever you told them to do, but maybe in the training, right? Maybe you need to train on free throws, and that will make you better as it comes to the actual game time. Maybe you're not even shooting, maybe the player that they're trying to train is not even shooting free throws, but by training that, they're able to complement all the other skills. And so giving them a view that the one thing that you're seeing is not the whole picture, and letting them see that whole picture and then make decisions based on that whole picture is something that they're able to then level up the recommendations and the coaching that they're able to provide to the players and the team.
Yeah.
Actually, there's another point on that old school people side on the sports side. Like the old school people, there's a really great example of we can give you that we convince some people over. So there's an old school basketball coach of a very, very good university team that I won't name by name, but not an analyst guy, not a tech guy, doesn't believe in computers, but really likes four-factor analysis. Had their analyst, every time he wanted to run it, tell the guy to run it. The guy would go pull the data. It would take 1 to 3 days. It'd be show up in a nice Excel template. He'd print it out in PDF and put it on his desk. That's the way they run it, and that's the only time he really wanted the computers to touch that whole analysis. Then we plug in all the data feeds for him, live updating data sets. And instead of asking somebody and waiting 1 to 3 days, he's now got a link on his phone, iPad, computer, wherever, can play with the levers, can pick his own games, last 5 games, last player series, whatever the set is, it's all updated. And then that's how you convert people. You find the things that they already do, give it to them in a far more easy, faster, simpler way. And it's just, when you get used to something more convenient and just quick, then you want more of that. So then next time he wants to run an analysis, instead of asking the guy, he'll be like, hey, can you make this new analysis like the other one? I can just check it anytime. And I think that's how you can convince them, the old school folks over it.
Yeah. And one of the big pieces of this is that a data scientist is not the expert in everything that's going on. They are the expert in the figuring out how to use all the data and apply it to certain situations. And so you need to have a conversation with whoever you're trying to build something for, whether it's the coaches or in other settings where we're talking to companies. The companies themselves know their business the best. So you have to have that conversation. Otherwise, you're not going to get useful insights at all. And then when you work with them to create those insights, then that's when people start buying in and they're like, okay, I actually made this. I can see how it's useful and I can see why it's doing what I'm saying. And maybe it may give unintuitive results sometimes, but that's because of the way that we have trained it, or that's the way that their data scientists have trained it with them. So then they give it a little bit more thought than just like, oh, this is just something that the data guy made and I don't want to trust that. So we don't hear that as much, actually.
Yeah, the big intention is we don't want to replace the scout, the coach, the intuition. We want to be able to complement that intuition with a bit more content, a bit more data. In fact, going a little bit into the weeds, but like the input of the intuition is essentially supervised machine learning. So like we need their input as intuition to actually build the model. Otherwise, the model doesn't know how to parse the data effectively. So being able to have a scout say, look, I look at this player and I just know this guy's a good player. That is an input into the model to allow then other data sets to be clustered around each other to identify the data behind the intuition, for lack of a better way to describe it.
So, I said this earlier, let's take it off the field again, right? Let's go to the business world. And as we know, and these, it's amazing talking to professional team executives, chief revenue officers, presidents of the teams, they'll tell us, right? The fact that a major number of their fans, in some cases 90+%, in some cases I've heard 99% of the fans of teams never go and watch a game in person in their stadium, but they're major fans of that team, and they'll do anything because they love that team. That, to me, is where there's this incredible opportunity for data and analytics to really be able to provide an incredible fan experience and engage those fans who never even set foot into the stadium to buy a hot dog or sit in the seat or buy a beer, but they're so into it because they're either watching the games on TV, on their phone, or who knows how, but they just love that team. But then it's this idea of figuring out ways, how do you reach out to those fans? How do you touch them? And I know that's also a big part of what you are doing at Ludis as well.
Yeah, Bo, do you want to take that one as well? I think this is very much a Web3 space question to jump into.
Sure. But I would say in general, we view that as same as everything else. We see large data sets, we see analysis that needs to be done, and then visualizations and insights to be had. So on the fan engagement side, anything on the Web 2 side, we're happy to help there too. But I'm guessing most teams at this point have pretty good social media teams and marketing channels and other things set up. So the area that we feel that we can be a material help, in addition to all the other operations or other off-field or fan engagement things, is around the Web3 aspect. Web3, just going to it quickly, the reason I think we find it so interesting is, as a new technology, I think sports has a lot to gain from that. But if you look at all the Web3 focus out there in the market, whether that's from analytics companies or others, a lot of it's based on the assets themselves. People are analyzing the NFTs, they're analyzing the tokens, they're analyzing what kind of benefits and other things are going to happen, the prices of things, the charts. What we're focused on, as you're alluding to, are the fans, the people. So how do you mix those two? When you think about NFTs, I know a lot of sports teams and athletes and leagues have already dabbled with this. The NBA and NFL have their own NFT collections, as do some teams. But when you think about what do those teams know about the people buying or selling those NFTs or interacting with them in a Web3 ecosystem, they don't know much. which is a little bit ironic because the Web3 whole promise is hyper transparency. The blockchain, everything is visible. And so that's what we're trying to do from an analytics standpoint. So without giving away too much, one thing that we're really focused on is looking at how the wallets are behaving to use that as a proxy to understand user behavior. And there's a lot of interesting things that you can pull from that over time, especially if you combine multiple different data sets. So you take the blockchain data, you take NFT data, you take marketplace data, and then if you have your own collection and you have interactions with your fans, you can layer in your own customer data to get a very comprehensive view of who exactly are these people interacting with us from the Web3 side. Should we keep pursuing this? Does this really have any beneficial impact to my existing business, to viewership, to attendance? All these things we can help you explore. We're not here to be prescriptive and tell you what to do in Web3. We're really here as a resource for you that if you have an interest in Web3 and if you have access to these data points, or we can offer access to those data points, we can help you think through and formulate your Web3 strategy before you go barreling in and hiring a Web3 dev team and launching an NFT and then realizing, whoa, what did we just do? Because what we don't want to have happen is a repeat of the social media wave where everybody went out and paid a ton of money to buy a bunch of likes. And they're like, great, we got 4 million likes on a post. Now what? And it's like, they don't know what's next. We don't want that to happen. We want to link all this activity and energy and investment that's going into Web3 to actual business outcomes, like fans, getting benefits or more viewership or more attendance.
Well, as we start to wrap up here on our 76 Capital Leadership Series show, first of all, it's been great having all three of you. And I'm excited that we're investors in the company and just can't wait to see truly what's next that you guys do. We always talk about from a personal perspective with our guests, who their mentors were, or who someone in their life was or a leader in their life that really helped move their careers forward. And I'd love to hear that from all three of you as well. Was there any specific person, or was there an event that really was the thing that has inspired you to go do all these amazing things that you're doing right now? And Vala, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I can take that. I can go first there. Obviously, I've been incredibly fortunate to have a lot of great mentors in my career. In particular, I think the ones to highlight were my first job out of college was a company called Slice, which was subsequently acquired by Rakuten. These were founders that had previously met at the GSP here at Stanford and had combined to form an incredible company called Fiber Tower that had been incredibly successful. I think they exited that for something along the lines of $800 million plus. And Slice was their second go around together. And they took me under their wing as this young kid coming out of college and gave me great advice, gave me great mentorship, gave me exposure to venture capital as well, allowing me to spend some time at Innovation Endeavors, which was one of the VCs that had funded Slice. And so they were just amazing mentors. I mean, continue to be amazing mentors to this day. Continue to sit down with folks like Scott Brady and Eric Botto on a regular basis. And so they've been incredibly helpful to me and incredible mentors to me. They're the ones that really set me on my path going forward. That's great. Samir?
Yeah, I think similar vein, the startup that I joined when I moved over from Wisconsin, it's called Explain.io. The founders over there, they really took a risk on me. I was not somebody with a traditional software engineering background, but they saw something in me that I was like quick enough to figure it out. And then they spent the time with me to actually nurture me and grow me into somebody that would be able to build a company again. And all the hard work and all the fun that I had at the startup, it kept pushing me forward that I wanted to do this again. And I wanted to do it on my own terms and figure out how to provide this to people down the line. So I want to provide that same mentorship that I got from that startup to the people on our team as well. And then also, like, I'm always trying to learn and I'm always trying to grow. And so same thing, I have mentors that I had at Uber and at Cloudera, and they've just been helping me all along the way. And it's very much thanks to them that I am here where I am now.
That's amazing. Bo?
I think I have two quick ones. One is my dad. My dad instilled a love of math very, very early on. And he's the one that really encouraged me to pursue finance. And I'm the one that kind of married finance and technology together. But he really instilled that love of math for me. And that's really what got me going down this whole career path to begin with. The second is somebody I don't know personally, and unfortunately he passed away. It's a person named Hans Rosling. There's a TED Talk by him that I saw years back. And that's what really kind of ticked my mind into like the amazing power of using data to really produce interesting things. And I recommend checking it out. It's a TED Talk by Hans Rosling. I think the interesting chart that he showed was like infant mortality according to country GDP size, and then other developmental factors. But it's just it's a moving chart, and it's so interesting. And when I started seeing things like that, and there's a great Reddit subreddit called Data is Beautiful, that's what really inspires me. I think I love seeing these interesting insights come from really complex data sets. And when you visualize it in really interesting ways, it's phenomenal, the things that you can learn. So I think that was a really big inspiration for me.
Well, it's been inspiring to have talked with all three of you, and we got to give another shout out to Anthony, who's not on here, but the four of you as founders of Ludis Analytics, we're thrilled to be involved with you. Can't wait to continue working with you, doing and again, as you know, our team and our doors always open for all of you, and we want to do anything we can to help and move your company along. And just think I think it's really great what all three of you, have shared with me. And I appreciate that. Appreciate you coming on to our show to do that. So, we look from my perspective, every time I get an opportunity to talk with you, I learn something. And I think that, you do a really great job of doing that same thing for your clients and your customers as well. And being able to take, this loads and loads of data and being able to, share that in a way that people can use it and truly profit from it all. So best of luck with everything. And Vala, Bo, Samir, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you, Wayne. And I also want to, on behalf of Ludis, extend our thanks for your support. Chad in particular, your partner, has been incredibly helpful in connecting us to everyone he knows. And so I just want to express how thankful we are and how much we're looking forward to working with you guys going forward as well.
Well, keep asking, keep working. We want to look, as we always say, when we invest in a company, we jump on your side of the table. We're partners. Anyone we know, we hope that we can, share that with you. And we hope that any of our, viewers and listeners of the show, if you want to reach out and get in touch with Ludis Analytics, how do they find you guys?
Yeah, you can find us on our website. We also have my email is vala@ludisanalytics.com. Feel free to reach out. And those are easy ways to reach out to us. And I know that folks can also reach out to you guys, and they'll easily get to us through you guys as well. So a lot of different channels to get to us, but our website is probably the easiest.
Well, that's awesome. Once again, Vala, Bo, and Samir, thanks so much for joining us on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. Really appreciate it and wish you guys the best of luck.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.